South Korea's military has a new enemy, population mass. South Korean Marines take part in the Sangyong 2023 exercise joint landing operation by US and South Korean Marines in the southeast port of Pohang on March 29, 2023. So, South Korea CNN. South Korea, with the world's lowest birth rate, may soon find itself without enough troops to keep its military fully staffed as it deals with the new threats in the increasingly tense Western Pacific region, analysts say. Always worry of North Korea's nuclear and missile threat, South Korea keeps an active duty force of about 500,000 troops, but with a birth rate of only 0.78 children per woman over their lifetime. The math might be South Korea's biggest enemy at the moment, and the experts say it has no choice but to downsize its forces. With our current birth rate, the future is predetermined. Downsizing of the force will be inevitable, said Choi Byung-wook, a national security professor at Sangmyeong University. To maintain current troops levels, the South Korean military needs to enlist or conscript 200,000 soldiers a year, he said. But in 2022, fewer than 250,000 babies were born, assuming about the 50-50 male-female split. That means in 20 years, when those children are of the age to join the military, of only about 125,000 men will be available for the 200,000 spots needed. Women are not conscripted in South Korea, and the volunteer females accounted for only 3.6% of the current Korean military, according to Defense Ministry figures. And the annual number of newborns is only forecasted to drop further to 220,000 in 2025 and 160,000 in 2072, according to Statistics Korea. Preparing for 2 decades, while South Korea's declining birth rate has been making down headlines in recent years, it's a trend the military has seen coming and prepared for. In the early 2000s, Seoul voluntarily decided to reduce the number of active soldiers from 674,000 in 2006 to 500,000 by 2020, based on the premise that the threat from North Korea would gradually diminish, and to promote a smaller but more elite military force, according to a 2022 Defense White Paper. South Korea's military has reached that goal, decreasing troop size by 27.6% in 2 decades, from 2002 to 2022. But the premise that the threat from North Korea would diminish it has proven false. Kim Jong-un, the third consecutive member of his family dynasty to rule, came to power in Pyongyang in 2011 despite a brief truce while he negotiated with South Korea and the United States to reduce tensions. He has pushed the massive build-up in the North Korean military, especially in its ballistic missile programs. Following North Korea's test of its 5th intercontinental ballistic missile this year, Kim warned that his country would not hesitate to conduct a nuclear attack when the enemy provokes with its nuclear weapons, referring to the deployment of U.S. nuclear-capable weapons platforms in and around the Korean Peninsula, state media KCNA reported earlier this month. But if Kim were to attack across the 38th parallel, which divided North and South Korea after the 1953 armistice, hurting the Korean War, it's the South Korean military that would bear the biggest defense burden. Turning to teach, experts say South Korea must look at science to counter that North Korean threat and turn the manpower crisis into a technology transformation. Korean defense authorities have had this long-standing policy that we would go from the manpower-centric military to the technology-oriented military, said Chun In-bom, a former lieutenant general in the South Korean army. In 2005, South Korea's defense ministry released a plan to develop each military into a science technology-centric force by 2020, but progress has been scant. Although the military was trying to make a transition, there was no urge because with South Korea's conscript, there were plenty of human resources, Che said. But Russia's war in Ukraine has shown the world that on the modern battlefield, the sheer troop numbers aren't enough. Of the of the 360,000 soldiers that made up Russia's pre-invasion ground force, including contract and conscripted personnel, Moscow has lost 315,000 on the battlefield, according to a recent U.S. Defense Department assessment. Ukraine's use of drones and high-tech weapons supplied by Western partners had taken a deadly toll on Moscow's greater force numbers. South Korea has been putting an emphasis on integrating new technologies into each fighting unit. The defense ministry last year said it would make a pace transition to the AI-based unmanned team called the MUMT combat system and introduced the Army Tiger Brigade, a so-called future unit which utilized both manpower and unmanned equipment to carry out missions. South Korea has also been developing unmanned military equipment, including the medium altitude unmanned aerial vehicle called MUAV and unmanned underwater vehicle UUV. Experts say troops are indispensable. But Chun, the former South Korea general, says technology is not a panacea. For instance, it takes manpower to take and hold territory, and it takes well-trained and educated people to run and oversee artillery intelligence system on the battlefield. It's not going to be enough, and no matter how we try, Chun said of technology, it is going to help, but it will not solve the problem that we lack people. But he and Che have ideas on how to get more out of smaller military force. For one, leverage of the conscription system and the reserve component that it wills, Chun said. We need to revamp our mobilization system where we will be able to tap into the large number of reserve population that we have, Chun said. After South Korean men finished their 18 to 21 months of mandatory military service, they become reservists for 8 years. During this time, they get called into assigned unit once a year to remind them of their positions and duties. And after that, they are subject to participate in civil defense training every year until the age of 40. South Korean Marines look inland after a beach landing rehearsal for exercise Sangyong on March 28 in Pohang, South Korea. The system now gives the South Korea 3.1 million reserve troops. Reservists must attend a 2-night, 3-day training session every year. One ongoing pilot system is to have a select number of those reservists trained for 180 days a year to reinforce their skills. Another option is increasing the number of professional cardless, commissioned or warrant and non-commissioned officers, all of whom are volunteers serving longer terms during which they would become well versed in operating advanced weapons to prevent gaps in combat capability despite the reduction of standing forces, according to the 2022 White Paper. The military has been increasing the ratio of casualties among its total force from 31.6% in 2017 to 40.2% in 2022, according to the Defense Ministry. A further rise to 40.5% by 2027 is planned, it said. Recruitment problem. One problem with this plan, the population isn't buying it. The number of applicants for commissioned officer positions has fallen over the years, from about 30,000 in 2018 to 19,000 in 2022, according to Defense Ministry data. The military is having a huge difficulty in securing outstanding entry-level professional cadres who would, in 10-20 years, form an outstanding officer corps. Choi said, pointing out that insufficient financial and social benefits for the cadres are the main reason behind the falling application rate. And what about turning to women, even in the military with conscription? Israel has conscription, and 40% of each conscripted force is female, according to the Jewish Women's Archive. In the all-volunteer US and Canadian armed forces, more than 16% of the troops are women. Choi said conscripting women could solve South Korea's problem, but he said there are too many impediments to it in Korea's traditionally patriarchal society, and even if those are overcome, it could simply be too expensive. There are various complex factors like social cost and the woman giving birth, so I think the cost in need would be much higher than the actual profit, he said. But Chan thinks attracting women volunteers is doable if the pay is attractive enough. If the soldier is paid $2,000 per month, that's a legitimate job. So the woman would say, well, I want to be able to have that job for $2,000 because for the same job should probably be paid $1,500 in the outside world, he said. For each part, the Defense Ministry says increasing the number of women who serve is the possibility among other ideas. But there are no timelines for changes, and the time may be something South Korea doesn't have much of. Earlier this month, Statistics Korea reported that the record low birth rate is expected to drop even further in the next 2 years to 0.65 births per woman in 2025. CNN Brad and Lennon contributed to this report.